Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to this edition of Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich. Welcome, and so happy that you are with us here today. And I'd like to introduce to you my long time co-host and dear friend, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you this fine day?
Wonderful, Ray. It's good to be with you.
Good to be with you. And as we are on our Zoom call, we're looking at the friendly faces of those who are joining us from all over the country, all over the world. We're welcoming them. We're welcoming you, whether you are listening on the radio or an internet stream, or perhaps you're even joining us on our YouTube Stress-Free Living radio channel after the fact, where we have all of our shows that have been produced live and then edited and placed up there for you to enjoy and to listen to and to share with your friends. Ratanjit, I have a topic today that has been on my mind ever since I was at an event recently where I met with a number of people that they came across as so courageous and so strong and so sure of themselves and so confident that everything was wonderful and things in their life really were wonderful. But behind the scenes, when they really just talked with me, they were afraid. And they were afraid of various things. They were afraid of losing everything that they had worked so hard for. They were afraid that something disastrous would happen because they were on a streak of good fortune and they felt that the odds were now against them. So maybe something was going to happen to their family or their life. Or maybe they were afraid that they would be found out that they really weren't as confident as they came across. They really weren't as sure of themselves with others as they were pretending to be. It made me think about courage, made me think about how we can find it, whether we have never had success or whether we are at the later years of our life where we have it. How do we find it if we don't have it?
So when you talk about courage, in your mind, give me a few examples of what you call courage.
I'm glad you asked, because I don't want this to be about, I want to be a race car driver. I want to go 200 miles an hour, or I want to climb the highest mountain in the world. I'm not talking about those feats that truly do take incredible courage. I mean, to be able to accomplish some things or to be crazy with doing things that people do. I'm not talking about that super feat courage. I'm talking about daily feeling of confidence in my life that maybe I need to make a commitment to a person in a relationship, but I'm afraid to do that. Maybe I need to change my job. Maybe I need to talk to my boss and have the courage to tell him or her how I really feel. Maybe I need to make a change in my own life. Maybe I'm overweight, or I'm drinking too much, or I have to quit smoking, but I don't have the courage to change something like that. That's what I'm talking about. Things that are everyday acts that require me to stand up to myself or to stand up to others and say, I got this. I'm going to move forward and do what I need to do without just doing the same routine that I have fallen into.
Yeah, basically, our mind-driven courage, which is basically telling us if I do this, my body would be healthier. If I do this, I will be richer. If I study this, I will have better knowledge. So all these things, we all have expectation and desires and wish list, and which we are all, I wish I could do that. So lack of incentive, which is preventing us from doing this, or so all these things are part in basically fear, greed, and ego. They are driven by that. So there are two types of courage. There is a courage which is driven by mind, mental courage. And then there is spiritual courage. So mental courage is always, what we are talking about generally is mental courage, because we have not connected to our spiritual being. So we cannot have spiritual courage. We can have a religion which is not spirituality. We can call ourselves spiritual, but we don't know anything about spirituality until we understand and know our own true self. So basically, the courage we talk about is all mental courage. And we are looking from bodily standpoint. I don't have the courage to quit smoking. I don't have the courage to do exercise or this and that. So, or I don't have the courage to climb a big mountain. So there again, that is ego driven. So that is why when a gold medalist in Olympics, with all his courage and disciplines and exercise, and ends up getting 2 or 3 or 10 gold medals. So eventually that person, if it doesn't use that platform to do a better for other things, using at that platform to add value, they'll be highly disappointed. So this courage, mental courage, ultimately, it'll make you achieve worldly things. It make you have wealth. It make you have fame. It make you have all these things. That is why so many successful people with all the glamour, all the money, all the fame, many times very disenchanted, very basically many times end up committing suicide. So that courage, where does it lead us? Although it looks glamorous in the initial stages, I wish I have the courage to do this. And then what? Supposing you have done that, then what? So this mental courage is always leading us to a wrong path. Ray?
What I'm confused about is that you're jumping already to the people that have mental courage and why it's not fulfilling. I'm actually taking it way before that. You're already in high school and I'm in kindergarten with it. I'm at the point where I'm saying I don't even, these people that I'm talking about, and myself on occasion, don't even have the mental courage. Okay, we don't even have the understanding of how to have any kind of courage at all, even if it's the wrong kind. Even if you're saying mental courage is the wrong kind, I think some people would maybe still be better off if they had mental courage. So one of the things you mentioned is you says they're driven by fear and ego and greed. And so I can understand the fear part. I can certainly understand that fear is a big reason why we don't have courage, but I don't understand how ego prevents us from having courage. It would seem to be on the surface the opposite. It would seem to me that if I want to be that fastest runner, or if I want to win that award, if I want to win that prize, then ego is going to be a driver for me to have the courage to do it.
No, you're right. You're right. Actually, what I said was most of the courage we get, which is supported by our fear, supported by our ego, supported by our greed.
Okay.
So mental courage, these are three things. So I don't want to be poor. I'm going to work hard. So I will gather the courage to work hard. And that is driven by ultimately the capacity, or ultimately when I make all that money, then what? So similarly,
So this seems to be a contradiction, though, doesn't it? I mean, I'm asking about people how to find courage, and these people that I'm referring to, and I don't mean to say these people as if there's a group of people that are bad people at all. I think it pertains to many of us at different times, maybe most of us at different times. We have difficulty finding the courage to make a decision or to go forward and do something. Those situations, if fear and ego and greed are such powerful drivers, then why can't some of us just use those? Why can't we just use those certain things, mental drivers, to find the courage all the time? Maybe it isn't sustainable. In high school, college, again, in this analogy, maybe we'll find out that those didn't make us happy, but at least they would allow us to have courage. And yet some of us don't even use those to drive us at any point. Am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? We're not using those. We still have no courage, even though those are so available to us.
see, courage is a quality which is allowing us to break our expectation to go forward. So you have to have some incentive.
Right.
So there are several incentives. When a mother, when her child is on a somehow got on a limb of a thing, and she is afraid of height, and when the life of that child is at risk, she will have the courage to climb that and save that child. So now that is incentivized by her, what you worldly sense we call it love or affection. And so there are several things. There are incentives which are, if you do this, and although it is painful, so supposing you are suffering from mental incapability or human body incapability. So some of your muscles are poor. So some doctor says, if you did this exercise, your muscles can be built. It is very painful. But because that final goal incentivizes you to be healthier, you will take that pain with a courage. So there are several reasons to be courageous, to do things which otherwise you would not do. So these are all future incentives which make us achieve that. They're not good or bad. They are basically, to understand this courage phenomena, we have to understand they are driven by some sort of incentive, which is ultimately tied to what I go back to, your mental mindset of fear, greed, and ego. In even possession, which we call mostly love, which basically is possession. This is my child. This is my friend. This is my spouse. This is my husband. So many of us do not understand the core principle of even love. Although this worldly love, which we call as love, incentivizes us to have the courage to do certain things that otherwise we will not do. But all of that is mental. All of that is basically ultimately driven by fear, greed, and ego, right?
That makes sense. You've clarified that a lot. I still, going back to the people that I, again, have run into that have had this problem finding courage to make decisions. So let's just take a case study. That's the popular term that they use for understanding really diving deep into a topic. So let's say that there's somebody who is they found a significant other. They found someone that they really want to, they think they want to spend a future with, they think they want to spend their whole life with, and yet they don't have the courage to actually make that happen. So they're in a relationship for months and it turns into years and it even turns into a decade, and they've never made that question that says, hey, let's make this forever. Let's spend the rest of our years together. And when we talk to them, they admit, I just don't have the courage to do that. I'm afraid that I'll ruin what I have. I'm afraid that it won't work out. I'm afraid that this dream of having that is actually better than the reality is going to be. So I'd rather not actually see if it works. So I'm just more pleased with where I'm at than having the courage to take that plunge and become married. Okay. This is a real situation that people have in is an example of this. It would seem, if what you're saying is true, if love is nothing more than a possession, then that person would want to say, I want to have more of this love. I want to possess, if you will, my significant other and have him or her possess me. And so it would seem if courage was only about the mental aspects of it, that it would be easy for that person to find the courage to do that, because it would be, now it's my wife, or now it's my husband, and now I have everybody's going to see that this perfect world. So my greed and my ego are going to be exemplified to everybody. So why don't they have the courage to be able to make that move if that's what's driving it?
So many times courage, lack of courage and presence of courage, both are incentivized by fear and greed and ego. So failure, chances of failing, somebody making this suggestion, why don't we get together? What if she says no? What if he says no? The failure of rejection prevents us from having that courage. Now,
Okay.
what you said, that love is possession. A lot of people who like each other, they get married. They are in love. So why they end up destroying their very passionate love and filing for divorce, or staying in a relationship which is not working? Because true love, spiritual love, basically constitutes sacrifice, service. And those two ingredients which are not present would be all mental possessive phenomena which we call as love. So when you sacrifice, when you serve unconditionally, you become an ideal partner. Because when you are expecting from your spouse, she has not said, I love you. She has not made this for me. When you are coming from work, she's sitting and watching television rather than cleaning the house. So when you begin to judge, that destroys your love relationship. Your purpose, your position, your motive, your only reason to be in this life is to serve. And once that incentive is understood, that relationship becomes beautiful and you have lasting love.
You've answered the question. You got into a whole different other important sidebar conversation there at the end, which I want to pick back up on. But you did answer my question originally, that it's interesting that those same mental factors that could give us courage also could take away the courage.
Yes.
Because which one's stronger? Is it my ego that says how great it's going to be when I have this better job, because I need to I tell my boss I can do a better job, and yet I can see the courage that it takes because of my ego, because I want to get there and I want to feel better about myself, but I could see also the courage that says, uh-oh, if you don't get it, then you're going to realize that you're not as good as you thought you were, and they don't think you're as good as you think they think you are, and you have failed, and you've put yourself out there, and now you have to step back because you've lost that little battle. So I could see what you're saying there, in that if it's all done on a mental side, our minds are constantly weighing over the options. We're weighing over the chances of success or failure. And is it going to bruise our ego, or is it going to reward our ego? And in either case, we don't have enough courage to act on it. So that's very intriguing. I haven't thought about that before. I wonder if our listeners have. We're going to continue talking about courage, talking about how to find it, and maybe how to find the right type of courage in our life. And since Ratanjit brought up love in this conversation, maybe we'll talk about the courage to find love, because that is certainly one of the things that many people hope that they can have the courage for in their life. We will find out where this show leads us today. Hope that you have the courage to stay with us. We'll be right back on Stress Free Living. Okay, now we have a great group of people that have joined us, Ratanjit, and so happy to have so many people. This is your chance, our great listeners. If you would like to comment now, please do that for the next few minutes. Ask a question that we can ask on the show.
Go ahead.
Great. Welcome and 3 cheers to both of you. So happy to see you back, sir. My question is, where does the real courage come from? Are there any operating principles which constantly one has to practice to be on the path of getting the courage and living the courage? That's my question for today.
Thank you. We will ask that for sure.
Dr. Luthra raised his hand. So Dr. Luthra, how are you? Thank you very much for joining us.
Please, you have to open your microphone though, please, so we can hear you. Is he? Oh, he's gone. Oh, there he is. No, we still can't hear him though. Is there anybody else while we're waiting for him to do that? Doug, did you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment is I'm still a little bit confused about, I keep thinking about courage and self-confidence, and maybe the combination or the difference between those two. Later I'll give a couple of examples, but I feel that, if you have self-confidence, maybe does that replace courage, or does courage replace self-confidence to take that step and go do something that you were afraid to do? But now I got self-confidence that I can do it. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Go ahead, and the doctor has opened his mic. Please go ahead and tell us, sir.
I have, good morning. I have 2 questions for now, at least.
We have time for one. Very quickly, please.
What if a relative has done something wrong to you? How do you stand up to them because you have a fear of losing the friendship or relationship? If you stand up to them, how do you do that?
Thank you so much. We will get that. We are back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich. During our breaks, we have the chance to interact with our Zoom audience, and we love doing that. They give us great topics and questions so that it's much easier for me with all them here, Ratanjit. I just have to take their questions and turn those over to you, so I don't have to think when I'm on the show anymore, thanks to all of them. And we will ask definitely some of the questions that they have asked here today. If you would like to be part of our Zoom audience, we welcome you to do that. Allows us to interact with you during the show and also after the show is over. So just to contact us, you can reach out to Ratanjit or myself, check out our Facebook page, check out our Stress Free Living page, and we'll give you information on how you can join us live for our programs. Ratanjit, boy, so many different ones there, good ones that came up, and I will try to do them in the order I think that works for the show. Let's talk about one of our guests asked about self-confidence versus outward courage. Is the same courage that gives us self-confidence the same courage that we use to handle the world? Or do they come from the same place? Are they the same thing? Or is there a difference? Do we get courageous within ourselves first in order to be courageous on the outside?
So most of the time, the self-confidence, which we call, requires crutches. Crutches of wealth, crutches of education, crutches of family history, crutches of title, crutches of all kinds of things, which are, if title is taken away, you don't have that courage to do certain things. Somebody has condemned you, that you don't have the courage. The self-confidence, which we call as self-confidence, is based on these mental capacities which we acquired. So we see ourselves as I have good health, I have better education, I have money, I have knowledge, and all these things give me confidence. So certainly, if you had an accident and because of the accident, you have lost the memory. So suddenly that confidence goes away because all those memory treasures which you had, that this is my knowledge, this is my things, you don't have those things. Suddenly those courage are not going to be there. Now, if there is another courage which comes from the real courage, which comes from discovering who you really are. I'm not talking about your gender, your nationality, your education, your all color, creeds, age, and any of titles or any of these worldly things. I'm talking about the real spiritual being within you. What enlivens you, what gives you life, once you understand that, that gives you a different kind of courage and different kind of confidence, and which cannot be dependent on what I call that worldly crutches. So otherwise, we are all collecting more of these crutches. More wealth we have, more title we have, more trophies we have, my courage is going to be enhanced. So normally, that is pseudo courage. The real courage only comes from finding the true self, which is independent of all these worldly things, right?
So I'm still not real clear on the answer to the question that was posed again by one of our wonderful guests. Is it a different type of courage that we have within us? Is it the courage for me to feel good about myself, to feel confident, to engage in conversations with other people, to move forward in my own life within my own bubble, if you will. Okay. I feel good about myself. I'm confident. I want to go out there and I want to do things in the world. Is that the same courage that it takes for me to talk to others, to climb the mountain, to ask that person for a relationship, a long-term relationship, without fear of him or her saying no? Is it just a change of words? Is it just a semantics here? Or does it take courage for me to have self-confidence?
See, allow me to jump a little bit. And what I'm talking about, once you realize that who you are spiritual being present within you. You are the enlivening force which is present in this body, which is making you do things. So until you relate to that, and suddenly once you realize that is who you are, and you begin to see the same force in everyone else. So suddenly your purpose of life becomes to serve that force. So right now, when I meet somebody, my worldly confidence would make me talk and try to impress them. So this confidence, which comes from realizing who I am, basically position me into the real confidence. My purpose is always going to be there in front of me to serve them. So what I say, what I do, does it serve them? So that is the question which I would be constantly asking. So that is the difference between knowing myself and not knowing, and considering yourself in the mental capacity and all the possessions which you have collected, and you identify yourself with all the possessions. Those possessions make you show more. If you have a big house or a beautiful car and somebody doesn't notice that, it's useless. So you want to invite people to show them, right? So
Yeah.
the real confidence is serving. If your house and your car and your body is designed to serve others, then it's a totally different story, right?
Okay. All right. Let's move on to another one of the questions that was asked, because we had some good ones. Sometimes when we're looking for courage, it's about an issue that has two sides to the story, and maybe potential harm even in the decision. Let's take the example of somebody that has been very mean to me. They have attacked me. They have done some harm to me. Maybe they have plotted to get me fired from my job and they succeeded, or something like that really has harmed me. All right. The courage that is needed for that type of addressing a situation, I personally think, when I'm trying to find that courage, I'm trying to say, I'm trying to do the right thing. I'm trying not to be harmful to them, but I have a righteous reason why I need to address this, because justice needs to be served, so to speak. So I'm trying to find the courage to have the justice to tell that person how upset I am with them and how they did me harm and how that was wrong, and how they at least owe me an apology, if not more. And I've got all these battles that I'm fighting in my head, and I'm trying to find the courage to do it. But part of me is telling me, don't do it, because you're just going to be as bad as they are. How do you find courage in those situations? Or do you let your conscience be your guide? Do you let or do I use it as an excuse? I say, no, I just won't do it because it's not the right thing to do. And that's just being, not stepping up to the plate and having the courage. Do you understand? Those situations happen in our life. How do we address that? Do we need to find the courage in those roles?
Yeah, you use the word justice. In the name of justice, all we are doing is injustice. Now, this is a separate topic, of course. I don't want to go into detail.
Maybe next week.
Okay. Yeah. Now, what happens is our ego-based or mental-based confidence is going to try to put that person in his place. You are going to confront him. You are going to tell him that this is not what is right, which is not what is wrong. So in the spiritual confidence, the spiritual courage, first of all, you see other person as a combination of habit and who has not discovered his true self. He's still parked in mental state. So you see that person as which is need help. So suddenly when you find, if you have a 5-year-old son who's running very high fever, and in that fever stage, he's telling you all kinds of bad names and kicking you and hitting you on the face. So you're not going to take revenge. You know this person is sick. Person is not in his right state. So same thing, if when the other person is saying the wrong things to you and insulting you and taking advantage of you, there are two things. You cannot allow somebody to harm you. You have to prevent that. So once you have prevented that, the second thing is basically other person's database, other person understanding of life, understanding of who they are is erroneous. Until that is corrected, you cannot, the courage here is not going to cure it. That courage which you think is courage is all ego-based. The true courage, the spiritual courage, is going to give you incentive to serve him or her in that condition, to have empathy with that person that they are under that state of mind. So you are trying to help them, basically. So instead of losing yourself and becoming angry and taking revenge, because all the revenge taking is all ego-based. I want to be even. And that is all our justice system is ego-based, because we are not correcting people. We are basically punishing people, right?
So it makes sense. When I said that in those many of those cases we're torn, we don't know what to do. We're trying to do the right thing ourselves, but we're pulled one way or the other, and we get emotionally attached to the situation where we start justifying things at every different level. Is that because even as I'm speaking these words, I'm realizing that we do make it an entirely mental situation? We are using our brain to process all the different feelings and factors, how bad it has been. Is it really as bad as I say? How long will it really affect me? What is fair for me to come back and do and say and retaliate and take revenge? We're doing it all with our brain. We're doing it all on a mental confidence basis. I guess if you really think about it that deeply, it's very understandable why we can't really find the courage to act, because we use so much mental gyrations to try to come up with an answer. We can't do it, So those are an example, I guess, of where we we really have to start practicing the spiritual confidence building, the spiritual courage.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we come back, we got to take a break. When we come back, let's advance to that. Let's spend the rest of the show talking about what you have said is the true courage that we all need to find. And we'll answer the rest of the questions that our guests have asked there too, because that's really about, what do we do? What kind of principles do we need to apply to be able to have that most important, most valuable type of spiritual courage in our life? We'll be back in just a moment on Stress-Free Living, and wrap this up to really finding the true type of courage that we need to have in our life. We'll be right back. All right.
Dr. Luthra, you had another question.
I apologize, but the music was playing there, Dr. Luthra, so I had to cut you off. You can start here again if you'd like to.
Thank you for taking the question. Is if you are an artist of some kind, if you think you're an artist, or you sing, or you write poetry, or write stories, and now you are afraid to present that, open yourself up to public, and afraid of criticism. And a lot of people put mental blocks to that, or are afraid to share that with the world at large for fear of being criticized or condemned.
Excellent. Excellent. I will absolutely ask that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We have another minute or so left. Is there anyone that has a thought? We're grateful that you're all with us here today. If you have a quick thought, you're welcome to share it.
So not left us, huh?
No, they're quiet today.
So this is Doug again.
Yeah, Doug.
It's almost the same question about the self-confidence, but also I could relate back to some of my experiences. I think more experience gives you more courage. You grow older and experience more things, or you seem to have more courage to do more things. If that even fits at all, I don't know, but I found that to be true.
Yeah, those are crutches, which I talked about. The more crutches you have, the more confidence you will have. Those are all mental.
Okay, we're coming back. We are back on Stress-Free Living. Ray Samit with you, and Ratanjit Sandhi talking with our guests during the break, and we welcome you to do the same thing. But we're happy, however you are listening to us on the internet stream or on the radio, AM, FM radio here in Cleveland, Ohio, wherever and however it is, we are grateful for you. Ratanjit, we're moving on to this. Well, you've been kind of teasing us with the entire show about the true type of courage that we need to have, not the mental type, not the type that is a crutch that we earn from experiences that we've gathered or education that we have learned, or any other, even artificial stimulants. We get courage for some people, if they drink or if they take different types of drugs and things like that, they feel that they now have courage to overcome their weaknesses. Those are all the mental type of courage that we build in our life that you have told us on a number of different factors. Sometimes it isn't sustainable. Usually it isn't sustainable. It maybe leads to other problems because we realize that the courage that we've shown isn't real. And sometimes it causes us to have a battle in our brain weighing over the factors. So let's put all that mental courage aside, and for the rest of the show, talk about what you say is the real courage, the spiritual courage that ultimately we need. So let's start with that. And let's take a specific example. Let's say that there is an artist, and this artist is very proud of their work. They believe that they can draw beautifully, paint, sing, write beautiful poems, but they're afraid to share that with other people. They do not want that rejection. And maybe they're maybe they aren't as good as they think they are, and they don't want other people to think less of them. They want them to think more of them. How do we apply the principles of spiritual courage to that dilemma that somebody may have?
So we have to first understand that our mind is an amazing instrument gifted to us. It has incredible creativity. It can remember things. It can do phenomenal things, mind. But ultimately, mind is a servant. Servant of you? Of who? Servant of real you. So what happens in most of our case, the real boss who is going to instruct the mind is sleeping. We don't even know him. We don't even awaken him. So in absence of the real boss, our mind becomes a servant. So when the real boss, the spiritual being, spiritual side of you is awakened, once you realize you are not the mind, mind is gifted to you to conduct things. So you can tell this mind to do certain things, and mind will say, oh, no, this is not, don't go there, you are going to fail. So your boss is going to say, doesn't matter, I instructed you to do these things. So eventually mind will go there, and you will have the true courage to do things which otherwise you would not undertake. So the real you has, once it realizes that its only purpose of existence in this human body is to serve. And serving doesn't mean cleaning the shoes or serving food or those kind. Serving means adding the highest value. So your mind would assess how to add the highest value. That is the instrument given to you to carry out the task of adding the highest value. But the boss, the real you, constantly telling your mind, so automatically the real confidence comes in you to do things which you otherwise would not do, as long as that as highest value. So you would have the courage to embark on situation which has the highest courage. Otherwise, all the unique gift which makes you a great artist, great poetry, great things, and in the absence of the real boss, your mind only wants credit for it. You want recognition for it, and is afraid you are not going to get the right recognition. So it remains quiet in exposing itself. Now your poetry, your artwork adds the highest value, make somebody smile, then you will not hesitate to do that. Ray?
So that's a perfect entry to one of the other questions that was asked about the daily operating principles that we need to apply to have this spiritual confidence. And by an entry, I mean, again, going back to that example, if I'm a person who is a writer, and if I write this story for you or this poem for you, I want to give it to you. If I give it to you because I am looking for you to say, wow, this is really good, okay, then that's probably based on mental confidence, mental courage. If I'm doing it because I want you to feel enriched by it, I want it to add value to your life, I want you to realize how special you are because of the words that I was able to write about you in the poem, then that's more on the spiritual courage, because it doesn't matter to me if you give me any credit or not. I did it because I wanted to add value to you, not because I wanted the return from you, right?
Yes.
But as human beings, we're always caught in the middle of that. We're always caught. The pianist on the stage gets lost in the music, becomes the music because it adds value to the audience that is enriched by it. But part of that pianist also says, but boy, am I good. I just did this to satisfy this amazing audience, and I'm great because I just performed this beautiful musical piece. But at the same time, they did it with the right reasons. They did it with the right intent. What operating principles do we need to do to be able to stay on the right side of that fence, to be able not to turn it into an ego confidence and courage, but the real type of courage based on service?
The irony of this is that we go and achieve knowledge. We get a degree and we sit in the seminars, we listen to the radio shows, we read books, we accumulate knowledge, but we don't live our knowledge. We talk about it, we lecture about it, we write books about it, but we don't live our knowledge. We live our habits. So until the knowledge is converted into habits, it's useless. It's like a great prescription by doctor, which can cure you, but you never take it. You talk about it, you frame it nicely and decorate your home with it, but you never take it. It is not going to have any effect on you. So you have to change our habits. We are lived our life with mental capacity, with the mental courage filled with fear, greed, and ego. So it is not going to change by one seminar, one talk. We have to consistently change that into habit, consistently remind ourselves that who we are the spiritual being. When we see somebody, we do not see him male, female, or any religious person or any nationality. We basically see the spiritual being in them. Our basic purpose is to serve them, not basically show our skills or confidence or ego or possessions, all that. So ultimately, we have to realize we are run by the software of our habits. So we have to change those. They have to be in the spiritual side.
So we have done many, many programs on habits, and maybe it's time to do another one to bring people along this journey with us that we try to bring with you on a regular weekly basis here on Stress Free Living. And when one of our wonderful guests asked about the operating principles to become more confident on a spiritual basis, if it starts with habits, then we'll start talking a little bit more about changing our habits, because I think you have proven in the past on many programs that we want to think we are who's on the inside, but really our habits are what do guide us and make us what we are, and pretty much control what we do on a daily basis. Ratanjit, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. What's that? Say that again.
Our operating principles are based in our habits. So
there we go.
Change.
Yep. So we're going to talk about that more in a future program, hopefully maybe even next week. In the meantime, thank you for being with us. Thank you for our wonderful guests for joining us from wherever you may be. Remember that we're all playing the same game. We will talk to you again real soon.